Today, we're going to discuss one of the most troubling problems that we're facing in our generation. And unfortunately, the numbers are rising, which is not something you want to ever hear. We're talking about suicide, suicide prevention. The loss of any life, particularly the loss of a young life, is so troubling to all of us, which brings us together, people from different countries and different professions, all trying to find some kind of a solution and a path so that we can help people reach out and embrace life with all of its problems and issues and troubles, but to see the beauty of it also and to stay with us, stay in there, because we all need each other. So, Sochi, if you would please introduce what we're doing, and then we can go around the room and everyone can kindly introduce themselves to our audience.
Okay, thank you all for being here. During this month, we are having this conversation with an organization or a group like you. Okay, today we have suicide prevention. And as you'll say, this is a matter for everybody. We are doing this program weekly, and we share this to the world of boxing. So what the information that you're going to share here with us, your experience, the work that you're doing, it's so important and has a huge impact. I live in Mexico, and I am very worried about the statistics that we have in Mexico, how this the suicide is increasing each year, and mostly in young people, okay, under 18. So that worries me, and I hope to listen from you what is going on in the States and in your experience. Thank you all and welcome.
Thank you, Sochi. Christian, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I would like to add that there's something wrong. I'm sorry. I don't know. I would like to say that I was reading last week about suicide prevention, and I was impressed because apparently there is nothing you can do when someone has decided to take their lives. There is no way back. Well, that's what I read. Probably I was misinformed, but I was shocked with those news because parents, especially, we try to stay very close to our kids, trying to help them and support them and everything. But once they have made the decision, is that right? There is nothing else to do. That's one of my questions for everyone here.
Well, before everyone else introduces themselves, let me just tell you how we came together, which kind of is coincides with what Chris said. About 2 months ago, I read about a young boy. He was on the amateurs. He would belong to a gym. He had a strong community and a loving parent. And he went out in the middle of the night, left a dozen roses on his mother's bed, and went out in the middle of the night, walked into the woods, and took his life. Now, those of us in boxing always say, put them in a gym, give them structure, give them family, and that will save them. Obviously, it's not enough. So I called Bruce Silverglade, who is the owner and the passion behind Gleason's Gym, and I said, let's put a panel together of people who are experts in suicide prevention and see what we can do. And Dorek Green and Jonathan Glassberg are two of the people that we spoke with when we met to try to come up with some ways to identify young people who might be prone to this and see if there's anything in the boxing world we could do to prevent it. So if you please would introduce yourselves, let's start with Bruce.
I'm again Bruce Silverglade. I'm the owner of Gleason's Gym. I've been the owner for the past 43 years. And I just would like to know how to identify the individual. Unfortunately, a friend of my wife's son committed suicide last week. And this was a youngster from a nice family, He was a musician. We knew of no problems. He was always going out and partying and calling people and having a good time. And unbeknownst to us, he must have had a problem and committed suicide just last week. How do you identify these people? If we can find out who it is, I'm sure, we can get the proper counseling. We can make a more loving home for him here at the gym and help him out however we can. But I think the problem is identifying him. Who is this person?
Yeah, identifying them without them out so they don't feel more scrutinized. And that's hard one. Jonathan, would you please introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Jonathan Glassberg. I'm a doctor of physical therapy within the Department of Veterans Affairs. And I'm not a suicide prevention specialist, but I do have a bunch of time within this healthcare system and can hopefully help the group in putting people together and using some of the connections I've had through Gleason's, through my time here at VA, and knowing our suicide prevention folks. Hopefully, we can get something done. You brought something up about identifying, and is it, if someone decides to take their life, is that just it and there's no intervention? Well, again, I'm not the pro here, but I've taken enough training to know that when someone's still alive, there is a way to intervene. There are best ways to do it, and Dorette would probably be much better versed in this, and also the screening tools. So I'll pass it on right now.
Dorette, would you
Hi.
kindly introduce yourself?
So my name is Dorette Green. I'm one of the suicide prevention coordinators here at the VA. I work specifically in Brooklyn, but just in terms of looking at how do we identify somebody who may or may not be thinking about suicide. Sometimes it's really looking at, like, are there any risk factors, right? So have things in that person's life changed significantly over the past, couple of weeks, couple of months, some, short period of time? Are they experiencing like loss? Are they experiencing like changes, like maybe homelessness? So looking at risk factors and then also trying to see how we can intervene to kind of like mitigate those risk factors is one thing. So just thinking about whether or not suicide is preventable, it absolutely is. Not all suicides are preventable, though. That's the thing. So if we, just like Jonathan just said, if we have an opportunity to intervene while somebody is still alive, if they've made some mention of, being overwhelmed or whatever that might look like, or even if they've casually mentioned suicide, there is, space there to intervene.
That's good to know. That's good to know.
Thank you.
I have a personal experience with that. I should be open about it because my family, we've been struggling with that. My youngest brother, we are 8 siblings. I'm the oldest, he's the youngest. He's been trying to make suicide twice. And we see his part, we know he's in depression, we know he has anxiety. It's very, very hard. And he almost reached his goal, okay? He almost reached it. Someone saved him because they saw him, But when we usually say that when they say, hey, I'm gonna get suicide, it's not true. But for example, my brother came to me 1 or 2 months ago, I can remember now, and saying goodbye. And I say, you don't have permission for that. You don't have permission to do that again. Okay, not even try. But what I thought is that he's seeking for attention. He feels very lonely. He doesn't feel love, that we love him. I don't know. Those are like the small things that I think they're the red lights. I don't know if you have been able, in your experience, to see that this is a very personal matter to me, that I don't mind sharing it, because we've been struggling with that, and he almost achieved his goal, But I think there are signs, but as society, we say, if they ask for help, it's not true. Is that true? I'm asking you, is that true?
So if they're asking for help, I'm trying to understand the question.
Yes, here in Mexico, for us is, oh, a dog that barks doesn't bite.
Okay. Kind of like it's attention seeking?
Yes, yes.
No, anytime someone makes mention of suicide, even if it feels like they're not being serious, or even if it does feel like a cry for help or attention, it is best to probably try to get them some assistance, because there's no lightness about suicidality, right? It's always serious, especially in the position that I work in. If there is mention of suicide, we want to screen, we want to make sure we have a sense of like, how risky is this person? Are they high risk? Are they low risk? Like, what can we do to assist in this position?
Jonathan, do you find that working with people physically, does that help in terms of kind of dislodging them from the path that they've set out for themselves? I mean, how important do you think that is when somebody seems to be going down that road?
Well, yeah, it's hard to focus on your troubles when your mind is focused on doing a task at hand, be it physical, mental, or active, vocational, what have you. So, yeah, it always helps to have engagement going on. It, I don't want to be flippant, but I've always, when I've had worked with people who have had different kind of depressive symptoms in the past, I always say two things. Do you have a job? And have you gone to the bathroom today? Because those are two very important things. If you've taken those out of the equation, I know it sounds very basic, and I don't mean to be flippant, but these basic things can really help your day get moving in another direction. So, yeah, I'm very lucky in my work where I'm doing something active with someone, and it's hard for them to really dwell or stew or consider these other background noises or context they have while doing these activities.
Bruce, do you find that to be so with the young people you work with at the gym? Bruce runs a nonprofit called Give a Kid a Dream. And a lot of those kids that come to him come from more disadvantaged backgrounds. So do you find that involving them in boxing has helped them in terms of their emotional well-being?
Yes, quite a bit. We get them together through boxing, but I find that these youngsters that come here, and some are from such horrible home situations and problems that they have, um, they're lonely. And once we get them into the group and they become assimilated with the other kids in the program, and they gain your trust, it helps them immensely. We get kids that don't want to go to school that end up getting high school diplomas. Um, I think it's the most important thing is just camaraderie. They got to realize that they're not alone in the world. They're not the only person with a problem. Other people have problems too, and they can work it out. So the attention that they get is very, very important.
The scariest thing is what Chris mentioned, is the person that you don't think of as a suicide risk. And now they're not calling it committing suicide. We say death by suicide.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I think that helps the people who are left behind to call it that. But it's a person that you don't think. It's all there's a poem called Richard Corey that the kids in school learn in the US about the person who has the perfect life, makes a lot of money, the beautiful wife, the great car, and goes home one day and kills themselves. And people are going, who are the Richard Coreys of this world? Those people who you would never expect that this would how do you identify those people? I mean, where do we start?
And one more question with what Jill is saying. Where does it start? Is it childhood? Is it when you are growing old? Is it at school? Is it at the house? Is it how you feel inside? Where does it start, and how to identify them, right? As Jill said.
Yeah, how do I identify them? Well, unfortunately, Sebastian is not with us who would help us with that question. I mean, we all have our opinions, but when we got together at Gleason's, we did have an idea that we thought would be very helpful that could be done through boxing. And that was, there are 6 questions that are asked at the VA hospitals, where also the suicide rate is climbing. And the trick is identifying the person without singling them out, so
Right.
they don't have more attention on them, which for kids, we're all accelerator, no brake. So once you have the kid going down this path, you don't want to make them feel more lonely, more different, whatever. And when they do coaching tests for boxing, to add these 6 questions to the coaching when the coaches are what is the word, Bruce?
Filling out
As
their
qualified.
qualified.
Qualified. To put these questions in there so that the coaches know what questions to ask kids, so that they could single out that kid, but just pay more attention to them, watch them more closely, not, and give them the attention maybe that they need, by adding that to the accreditation for coaching boxing in amateurs. Sochi, you do a lot of accreditations. Do you do anything like that? Mental health
Oh, yes.
tests
Yeah, we have a program.
with the coaching?
Yeah, with the coaching, we have a program that is called Mind of a Champion. Okay, and we take kids, amateur kids, by the hand, and also the same program for the coaches. Okay, where we teach them or help them to identify different levels, so they can understand if they have anxiety, if they have if they feel lonely, and we take them through a path where they can see boxing or their gym has a sense of belonging, and is when the magic begins. Okay, is where boxing does the magic, because many of these kids that are on drugs, they've been struggling before drugs, before addiction, with many of the symptoms of that take them through until the end to the suicide path. But in this program of coaching, Mind of a Champion, we have found out that boxing gives them a sense of belonging. And I know maybe, Bruce, you can tell me if that is true in the programs that you put in your gym, that these programs make the kids feel that way, to help them heal and to take them off of the streets and drugs and all of that.
Yeah, that I find that quite frequently. The kids that come in, they're not terrible kids, but they're in a little bit of trouble, and they're referred to us through our program. Sometimes it's a mother that calls us, but sometimes it's a parole officer or a clergyman. So they're troubled kids. They're in a little bit of a bad environment. They have no money, and we bring them in, and again through the camaraderie of the closeness of the people, and realizing that they're not alone. Most of them get better or feel better about themselves, and they do better. They want to stay in the program, so they do better in school. We give them a tutoring, and that's very important. And the kids that like the program excel in school because they want to show us that they're doing better and getting better. The fellows and now the young ladies that come into the program, if they leave the program, they don't like it, and you really can't help them. But the youngsters that stay in the program have become very successful.
Well, they call boxing an actionable solution because, as Jonathan said, you're in the moment, you're releasing endorphins, you're in a group. So it is an actionable solution to depression and whatever. But Durette, do you ever can you, when you speak to somebody who's in complete denial, but then goes out and does the unthinkable, can you get a sense of who that person will be? Is there any clues? Because again, the person that we really need to focus on is the one that we don't think is going to do something and then harms themselves.
Right. So I think when you were talking about the 6 questions that Sebastian had mentioned before in our meeting. The 6 questions are the Columbia Suicide Severity rating
Right.
screening. And those questions help you to kind of like assess whether or not somebody has had like recent thoughts of suicide. So being able to identify that is really helpful. A lot of times there are questions that you can ask related to if there's any history of, suicidal behavior and or, actual suicide attempts, right? So someone who's had a suicide attempt anytime in their life automatically makes them a little bit more chronic risk. So they might not be what they call acute risk. Like they might not be somebody that needs to be in the hospital or needs to be in treatment right this second. However, they may be somebody that we can look at to say, well, maybe this person might need a little bit of assistance, especially if they're experiencing this right now. I'm just trying to think about, so that's the just kind of like screening and like kind of identifying someone part of it. The other part of it too is like, how can we help, right? So like things like creating a safety plan for that person. I like the idea of them having, this outlet of going to the gym and having this connection and community and bonding, because that is part of it, right? A lot of times you'll see that people, in a lot of the theories around suicide, people who have a sense of like perceived burdensomeness, as well as, a lack of a sense of belonging, they are, there's a higher rate or higher risk of them potentially going on to commit suicide.
What I'm hearing from you is that we have no way to like prevent it 100%, but there are people that we can save and can help by
Absolutely.
identify them as riskier
Yes.
than other people.
Mhm.
Jonathan, when you work with people physically, can you tell by their bodies? I mean, there's this whole thing of Reiki and energetic therapy, body types. Can you tell by looking at them if
One
those
of the-
people are more vulnerable?
I can't say that per se, but one of the things I teach, on the side, I'm a professor of physical therapy at a couple of schools. And what I go into the psychology of things. I want people in my profession not to diagnose someone, but realize someone that may be at risk who may really benefit from a referral to a specialist. So I think, yes, can we see people like in a therapy environment, if their mental health issues or however they're feeling is interfering with being able to achieve goals, that's actually a red flag. And it's interfering with their progress. I like to piggyback on what Dorette said a minute ago. Again, I learned this in a training and I've actually used it. If you kind of identify that someone could be at risk, you can ask them, hey, do you ever think about hurting yourself? Do you have any plans to hurt yourself? And when you first hear that, you're like, whoa, I don't want to give them any kind of ideas. And what's shown is that, no, you're not giving them the idea. You may be giving them an outlet to be able to say that they did it. But it takes a minute to wrap your head around that. You can and ought to ask, hey, do you ever have thoughts of hurting yourself? That's maybe the way I would say it. You could say everyone's got to get down how they get down, but that may be the way I say it. But yeah, Dorette, I don't know. Can you confirm that? Because you are the pro here.
When I actually do a lot of those trainings, and I like to tell providers specifically, it's probably better to ask directly, like, are you thinking about killing yourself? Because everybody conceptualizes hurt differently, right? So someone might, think of hurting themselves as like, yeah, I'm gonna go maybe do some like self-harm behavior, like cutting, right? But they don't necessarily have any intent on like actually taking their life. Whereas somebody who's thinking about killing themselves, like that is the question that they need to hear to be able to answer it.
I appreciate
because
that. That was being weak.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but cutting yourself, is it a sign? Not always, right?
Not always.
Not
It could just be
always.
self-injurious behavior. Some people cut themselves because they want to release some kind of tension or frustration or whatever, right? It might not necessarily be indicative of suicidality, but you can always ask them. They might just say, well, no, I don't have any intent on killing myself, but I've been cutting for a long time.
The end of the room is suicide, right? But before that, they cut, they take drugs, they do a mess. Before they actually
Not
uh,
always though, social. That's
no?
what she's saying.
No,
They
not always.
someone can do self-harm but not have any intention of actually dying.
Yeah.
It's a way to relieve tension and stress
Mhm.
for
Yeah,
them
but
to cut.
sometimes- Okay, let me reformulate my appreciation or questions. Before suicide actually happens,
Mhm.
are there signs? Always, it has to be a sign. Maybe a person
No.
that's very cheerful now becomes shy.
No,
No,
not
Some-
always. And
not-
I'd like to bring something into this, please, because I've gotten messages and I've seen on social media where parents get very upset and angry sometimes when these kids are given questionnaires. Do you ever feel like hurting yourself? Do you ever feel like killing yourself? They're saying, why are you putting that into my kids' heads? Because we are so involved in our own social image and wanting things to be nice and clean and how neighbors think of us, that even when somebody shows some signs or when people try to intervene, the parents will go, oh, no, 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 don't take, my child is not like that. Don't take them down that path. I know, I would never commit my child. I would never call the police. They're afraid of the way it looks to the neighbors. And
Mhm.
people have to be much more proactive when they see something, you know, they may not have those signs that social is talking about. I mean, we're talking about these kids who look, they may be a little withdrawn or something, but they look perfectly normal. And then
Normal.
all of a sudden they're gone. They're totally gone. They have no concept of what that means to the people they leave behind, or that they won't come back. They're
Yeah.
kids. They don't know. Or no one would smoke. I mean, we don't have a concept of the future. So
Uh, I met someone when I was in high school. We were only 18 years old, and this was a classmate. Of course, not the kind of guy you will date, but he was not weird at all. He was a normal kid. And December the 31st, he shot himself in the mouth. It was shocking for everyone, but nobody knew why. Nobody knew what happened. All we knew was what he left behind for all of us.
yeah.
Today, we still think about him and we still can't understand why he did what he did. But
This
there
is
were no signs, there was nothing.
this has touched all of us. I mean, I'm sure everybody here can tell a story about someone they knew, someone they cared for, who did this, who committed suicide or died by suicide, as they say it now. And the numbers are so astronomical. In New York City, among Black and brown children, teenagers from the ages of 10 to 17, the rate has gone up something like 140%. Who at that age would even think to do something like that? It's just a tidal wave of grief. That's all it is. So on a positive level, what can we do? We can educate our coaches. I know Social has a course. Chris, you took a course that Social had about
On mental health, I did, yes.
And I have a question, Chris. This course is very basic because
It is basic.
what we wanted to acknowledge with that course, and maybe you can share with our panel here, is we wanted to make a course so we can all talk about the basic issues of mental health. We need to open the discussion. We need to prepare parents, trainers, teachers to identify small things. Did you find out more about that in that course? Just very basic, because before, I as a parent, I couldn't identify some things. So I thought it was good to have that very basic certification to all of us are able to speak about the issue that we're discussing right now.
I would go a little bit deeper in terms of accepting what you are going through. People don't like to accept they are going through a mental health issue. Before, if you had something in your head, you were supposed to go to the psychiatrist and and you were put in the hospital like forever. Now people have to understand it happens to everyone, and we should be able to speak about it. The course doesn't say, there is nothing about that in the course, but probably we should go a little bit deeper. But I think parents, we're to everyone, and we should be able to speak about it. The course doesn't say, there is nothing about that in the course, but probably we should go a little bit deeper. But I think parents, we love our kids so much that we are incapable of accepting they are going through something. We are like, that's not my kid, it's not happening to him, it wasn't him, blah blah blah. So I mean, like a mother, I believe we should find the ways to say, okay, we love them so much, but we have to be aware they're people, they're human beings, and they go through a lot of issues that we don't even know about. Peer pressure is terrible. The loneliness they feel, bullying. So I don't know what you can tell us to do, but we have to find a way out, because this is rising every day. We know about someone who seemed like a normal person, and all of a sudden they're gone.
Is there some kind of a check-in that anybody can think of that you can do with kids? Just some sort of a check-in
Yeah,
that would give us a clue?
in the amateurs, all non-athletes have to take a course called Safe Sport. And it's more about sexual problems with coaches and athletes, and harassment among athletes themselves. But if we can get to the people that put this program out, maybe we get those 6 questions entered there. And secondly, on an application, all the amateurs in USA Amateur Boxing have to fill out an application online to either become an athlete or a non-athlete. If we can get to the administration, maybe we can get those 6 questions put there. And I think probably it will be easier if we contact the medical aspect of the amateurs and speak with the physicians. They can probably put more pressure on the management than just somebody like myself calling up and saying, hey, we have 6 questions we want to answer. But there's
agree.
no applications. There's things that we can start getting these questions out to the fighters as well as the non-athletes.
I agree. And that was sort of what we decided at our meeting was, and then Sebastian, who's not with us right now, had sent those 6 questions in, and they are easily added to any of the applications. And the WBC is a great example of an organization. We give out leaflets, and we give out at every fight. There are different things that are given out too, in terms of headaches, in terms of medications, in terms of all kinds of things. Can be posted in gyms, can be done. It absolutely doable, Bruce. Absolutely doable to get those 6 questions out. And as Chris said, people have to be more willing to look at their children as people.
Yes.
They are people with their own issues. Some of their issues might be with us, so they'd be less likely to talk about it. But you have to do some kind of a family check-in to make sure that everything is as good as it seems to be, or what's beneath it if it's not.
Well, that's if you're coming.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying that's if you come from a normal family. But for example, so many of the kids that are in my program, they're broken families at best. And then if there is one mother or one father, half the time they're not taking care of the kids, and that's one of the reasons why they're getting into trouble, and we get them in the program. So it's not that easy to say the parents should give more support. I'm sure if there's many of the parents that are together do give support, but so many of these kids come from bad environments.
Absolutely. But that's why you have the gyms, the schools. I mean, this is a very doable way to help.
Yeah.
Again, some problems cannot be eradicated. These things will happen, but it's a very doable to raise the bar on dealing with this. I don't know what it's like in the schools now in the US. What is it like in Mexico? I mean, are people more plugged into mental health programs and
No,
social?
absolutely not. And they don't even know what they feel. So these kids, they just want to belong. They want to be part of the groups, and they won't stop and say, what am I what I am feeling? What do I need? Okay, my family is broken, but what can I do? They don't know that concept. It's all about their group and belonging.
I want to share a study that we made. Maybe it's interesting for you. You asked, what are the schools doing? We made a study, and what we found out in that study is many of the kids are fine, but guess what we found? The teachers are not. Okay?
Interesting.
Teachers were fighting with their mental and, I don't know, their heart issues, whatever, and they were in charge of groups of 30 kids. And many of them have two works, twice. They have to work to attend to 2 classes a day for 4 hours. So we did that study for the kids and for the teachers. We thought the problems were going to be the kids. They're very simple questions that I can share to you. But the answer was that the ones who needed the help were the teachers. And it's when that course that Chris took came up, because they didn't know how to identify if they were in crisis or the kids were in crisis. So we found out that we needed to work with the parents, with the teachers, with the trainers, and with them, so they are able to help the kids. So I think it's good if we work with the kids at the gyms and everything, but we also need to work with the trainers, with the teachers, with the parents, okay, who the people that are responsible with. And what I think, and I put the platform of WBC University at your disposition, we can work that course. And if someone follows, it will be great, Jill. And you know, we have the platform, is yours. Count with the technology, with your experience, with everything, and we can put that course together.
It is a great course. It is.
And in my
I'm sorry.
study, and it's the important thing is we found out the parents, the trainers, the teachers, we were the ones who needed help first. We need to understand what the problem was. And
It makes total sense. Jonathan, do you find that with the instructors that you work with? That they're the ones that are more fried than the kids are?
It's funny you say that. A colleague of mine is currently speaking in Tokyo on clinician burnout. And clinician burnout leads to many negative aspects. So it's important to be aware of who you're with. And, you know, tomorrow we have a little lunch here at work. You know, maybe that'll be something to help someone from feeling extra burnt. But yeah, poor outcomes definitely occur from people being burnt.
Absolutely. My niece is a teacher. She at Hunts Point. It's a school where there's like 40 kids to a classroom and 10 chairs. It's a very bad section. It's a very bad school. She loves it there. She's been there for 20 years. In the United States, after a certain number of years, you can transfer to a better school. She's there because she's passionate about being there. But these teachers in this country are so burnt out in the public school system. They have too many kids. They go out and a lot of them have to buy their own supplies. Mm-hmm. It's a very thankless job. They start out very passionate, very involved, and they end up being dried out and used up. So I agree completely with what you're saying. You can't give what you don't got, as Howling Wolf said. You got to have it here first. So what do? We know what the problems are. What do we do?
So I have a question. Is there any like national crisis hotline type of situation in Mexico where, like, if you're going through a crisis, you can call, not necessarily 911, but just kind of like talk through, like whatever?
No, we don't. And the truth is nobody cares, but I mean, the person who is going through the bad moment is the only one that cares. Not the parents, not the teachers, not the friends, no one. So I think we should start by telling kids or people that they have to trust themselves, listen to themselves, and from that look for help or whatever it is that they need.
I have a comment on
And where should they go? Because they don't have, they have nowhere to go. And the doctors are very expensive as well. So
Chris, why do you think that is, that there's no, in the United States, they have different helplines. Why do you think they don't have that in Mexico?
before Chris answers, because yes, there is.
yes, there is. Not that I know of, but okay,
Here,
tell us.
here we work by states, okay? Each
Mhm.
state have their own policies, okay, of how do they manage health. For example, in the state where I live, that I live very, very far away from where Chris lives, okay, we have a hotline, but the government decide to have that hotline because we work together, the politicians, the academic, and the society. And finally, the deputies, I don't know how you call that, they decide to invest in mental health. But we did a study, and now here in the state where I live, it's a hotline. It's not a public policy for all Mexico because those decision goes by a state. But I think we need to work on that so it becomes a public policy for whole
Public
Mexico.
matter.
Yes.
Duray, do you think that the hotlines really help, or do you think
Oh,
they
for
help?
sure. For sure. So
Think so
here
too.
we have the National Suicide Crisis Hotline. And there's also an offshoot of that that goes directly to the Veterans Crisis Line. So it's like two separate things, but it's all kind of under the same umbrella. And I know the Veterans Crisis Line has only been in operation since 2007, but in that time they fielded more than 3 million like calls, texts, chats. Like they have different avenues of being able to contact the crisis line. And I think of that, there's almost 500,000 what is it called? Like emergency dispatches that they've done, right? So meaning that they've been able to call the police, call an ambulance, have someone taken to the hospital that was in crisis, right? So it's been a tremendous like help to people who are in crisis. So I'm surprised it.
And what do you have to do? Do you know what you have to do to qualify to be one of those people that actually answer these calls? Do you need a certificate or a degree or just a compassionate nature?
Right. So the people who actually respond to the calls are not clinicians. But they do go through a training course to kind of like know how to like, just talk to someone who might be in crisis, de-escalate a situation, contact EMS if they need to, that kind of thing.
What we did here is the numbers raised after COVID. So this is like an emergency decision that the state took here in Sonora, where I live, okay? And it's been working because the suicides raised a lot during COVID, the violence, everything raised. It was crazy, okay? So the hotline here, it hasn't been here for long. We've been working with that for the past 3 years, but they took the decision after COVID. And for now, I know they're stopping many suicides right now because it was increasing 10% each year, 10% each year in the young people. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Okay, so I think it works. They don't have to be expert, Jills, to answer a hotline because what a person in that kind of emergency, maybe they're just seeking for help. That's the feedback that we have. They just need someone to talk to.
But the question is, what should you not say to somebody you think is in crisis? There are things that you should not say.
I don't
What
know.
would be those things? Well, it's like when we go into a hospital with WBC Cares, we always say when you speak to the children, never say, oh, you'll be going home soon, or how do you feel today, or tomorrow you'll feel better, because it's bullshit.
And you don't know. You don't even
They
know.
don't know, and it puts an emphasis on things you don't know. So are there things when you think someone's in crisis that you should not say and do?
Well, I think one of the things, maybe not to not say, but one of the things that you kind of always want to say is that there is help available, because there is, right? Or generally, there should be some kind of help available, whether that looks like trying to connect them with mental health treatment, or trying to assist with, getting them hospitalized, or whatever, again, intervention needs put in place to kind of like assist them from, or mitigate whatever those risk factors are, right? So for example, if somebody, is feeling suicidal because they've recently experienced homelessness, right? The help that might be available is like, hey, we can connect you with these housing programs. And like, we can be realistic about what that looks like. Like, no, you're not going to get housed tomorrow. Like, but you can go through this process and potentially get your own apartment or whatever it is, right? So this is the problem. How can we help mitigate that? Because if that's the thing that's leading to this behavior, and there's a way to mitigate that, then let's try.
Bruce,
So
what do
if,
you do?
Mm.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Now, I just wanted to say, given the circumstances, will it be reliable to start a campaign to make kids trust themselves, listen to themselves, and then they will be able to speak, and then they will be able to go to the gym. But first, they need to learn to listen to themselves. Shall we start a campaign on that with the
Well,
WBC Cares?
we have campaigns like that, and there are campaigns all over the United States like that, whether it's bullying or suicide or whatever. It's like preaching to the converted. Those who are willing to listen will come on board. It's what we're talking about, those people who would not. I mean, we can educate other people, but the people have been doing that. It's just not enough. It's like we're putting band-aids on fires. And Bruce, when you see a kid come into the gym or someone and you sense that there's an issue going on, do you approach them? Do you do anything? Do you have a plan for that? Or is that not in your toolbox?
It's really not in the toolbox. We don't know. Uh, the youngsters, if they come into my program, if it's the Give a Kid a Dream program, yes, we talk to them and we speak to them and also a parent prior to them coming into the program. So we do have some intervention there. But the normal members of the gym that come in, there's very, very little interaction between us other than their training and they get started with a trainer. But everything that you've mentioned that's needed, that's what boxing does. Boxing gives you self-esteem. Boxing gives you a good feeling about yourself. It lifts you up. It teaches you how to deal with fear. So if you can get them into a gym, particularly a boxing gym, that's half the battle because all the problems in life we face in the gym. And
But how do we do that? How do we get them to the gym?
Well, again, go through the education system. Get the schools to have a boxing program. Let the kids know that there's a program. And a lot of these kids that drop out of school or don't want to go to school because they're toughies or they're in a gang or something like that. If you say to them, listen, we have a boxing program. That's macho. So maybe they'll get into a boxing program. And if you can get them into the program, it helps a lot of it. It doesn't help everyone. I have turnover at the gym. Some people come in, they realize it's not what they thought it was, and they never come back. But I have other people that are here for years and years. It's very, very addictive. So if you can give them that opportunity to taste what it's like and see the camaraderie here, a boxing gym is unlike many other gyms. A boxing gym is a community center. Everybody knows one another. People, if they're coming from Wall Street and they meet the kids that are out there from other lower socioeconomic areas, they meet them. They see they're focused and they're concentrated, and they find out when they're going to fight and they follow them. And conversely, the kids come in from the projects and they meet women, they meet white people, they meet people that have good positions, and they say, "Hey, I can do that also." So it's a community. People know one another and help one another. So we have to get them into that type of a situation.
Well,
Okay.
the issue here in the United States, and I'm sure it's similar in Mexico, is that especially now there's no funding for any of those programs that are actionable like that. There are just so many Bruce Silverblades that give free boxing lessons to needy people. He bring them in and they do tutoring and they do boxing. But all these kids, and there are very, very few schools that have boxing as a part of their agenda because the establishment sees boxing as a dangerous sport. Whereas a school like Lucy Lane in Milwaukee that added punching bags and boxing to their curriculum all of a sudden went up 99% in attendance, not just for the kids, but the teachers would go in there and punch on the bag when they would get frustrated. And that was a very poor school, and boxing turned it around. But we have no funds. I mean, and we don't have enough Bruces, and we don't have enough WBCs to bring kids into a gym, you know, or any sport, but boxing is great, and fund the programs for them.
Such a
Okay.
sad situation. I think from my way, and I repeat it again, if you are willing to do a program together, there's our platform. I do the homework. You only tell us what you want, what information you want to be in. You can review what we already have developed. I can do the translations for you, and we can like upgrade it with your experience and maybe give the answer to those six questions that you already have. And we don't charge for that program, okay? We don't charge because we think it's so important, and it's our way of helping trainers and kids, okay, to teach them how to a more successful life, whatever. And we want to help the trainers. But if you are able to put your input to upgrade this program, well, the door is open. That's something that I will love, Jill, to work through you with them, and our doors are open, and I can send you all the information and the content that we already have.
It's very gracious of you, and Jonathan or Bruce or Dorette, if you wanted to do that, that would be a blessing. I'm sure you have things to add that would be great for people to see.
I'm thrilled
There-
to take a look, but I need to let you know I have to jump off in about
We're all going to jump off. We're
We're
all
all-
going to jump off. This is all going to be edited, so
Just
don't
jump
worry about it.
safely.
Yeah, jump safely. All I want to say is that the problem that we have is the money, which could save all these lives, is not being used for the things that would really make a difference. I mean, we know that there's no funding in the schools. There's nothing. There's no funding in the Veterans Administration. They're cutting everything, cutting jobs, cutting people who help people. It's horrible. So it's up to us. It's up to us. Thank
It's
you.
Well,
Good
thank you
meeting,
so much.
a good meeting.
Looking forward to staying in touch.
Thank you. Thank you, Dorette. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and make this a beautiful day for you and for those around you. Make people know that they matter, that life would not be as good without them, that they matter.
Right.
Maybe that'll keep them with us.
Can you say a final phrase, each of you guys? So for the edition part, final phrase. We will edit that, okay?
Dorette?
Ooh, I don't know. I'm kind of like stumped. Now, a final phrase, do you want like, because I can give you just a soundbite of information. that might be helpful. I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
I'll
Conclusion.
jump in.
Go
I'm
ahead,
trying to-
Jonathan. Go ahead,
We're
Jonathan.
trying to do something that matters for people that matter. Pow.
Oh, great, great.
Now you're nervous.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Cool.
I'd just like to say, I think it was a very successful meeting, and we have to plan a follow-up meeting. But I'm going to certainly contact the national office for the amateurs and see if we can't get them involved.
That would be great, Bruce. Dorette?
I guess I'll just reiterate that,
Mhm.
help is always available, and often it's available once you seek it. So it is one of those things where, if somebody is aware enough to, ask for help, help is there.
Great.
I would like to tell kids that they are worthy, they're worthy of love and respect, and they are capable of everything they want to do and achieve in this life.
If
I just want to say thank you, and the doors of WBC University are open for you, and we should work together and get things done to help so many that need help, including ourselves.
Yes,
I would say every day you're here with us is a day that may have pain in it, but is also filled with possibilities. So stay with it.
amen.
Oh, I love
Thank
it.
you, everybody. We'll